Today, I'm going to talk about how to get a job with a prospective employer. So how do you get a job with a prospective employer? I will give you some good advice how to compete in this highly cutthroat, highly competitive job market. First of all, it's very important that you're a good, obedient conformist. It's also extremely important that you have a good attitude. And how can you show a corporation that you have a good attitude? When you go in for a job interview, you need to show a corporation that you are willing to kiss ass. And you must show a corporation they're willing to put up with their shit. But even that is not enough for them. If you want to get hired from a prospective employer, you must be willing to smile while putting up with their shit. Well, anyway, you got to remember that you have bills to pay, so you have to kiss ass and answer the job interviewing questions the way a corporation expects you to. And I was at a job support group and I was practicing by writing out the answers to job interviewing questions. And they had a mock job interview, and they had me read out some of the answers that I came up with out loud. The answer to the question I read out loud are, what are your strengths? My answer was, I have good writing skills, and I really enjoy writing stories that are sexually explicit. I also enjoy writing about diarrhea, cannibalism, and necrophilia, but I really enjoy describing bowel movements in graphic detail when I write my stories. Well, at least the people in the group I was at had a sense of humor and found what I said to be very funny. Even the facilitator thought what I said was funny, but he told me that is not the correct way to answer that job interviewing question. I was told that about the way to answer the what are your strengths is I work well under pressure. Well, I don't work well under pressure. When I'm under pressure, I have meltdowns and I start screaming and swearing and cussing at the top of my lungs, and I start throwing things. That is definitely the ultimate ass-kissing answer. What am I supposed to do? Go into a job interview and lie? Now, I hope I never have to go in for a job interview again, but here's some of the stupid questions I might have to do with being asked. So, Pat, tell me something about yourself. Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm a militant anarchist antichrist, and I hate corporations very much. I'm sick and tired of these greedy, money-grubbing scumfuck corporations who think they can do whatever they want to and do whatever they want to ruin people's lives, and corporate America needs to be smashed. It upsets me very much when I think about the shit that these corporations are getting away with. However, to make myself feel better, I usually masturbate about 2 or 3 times every day. However, sometimes I masturbate as many as 6 or 7 times a day on days I happen to be extremely horny. And one day I spent too much time looking at my cock, and I forgot to look at the clock when I noticed that I was running late for work, so I had to hurry up and shoot my load. I then had to hurry up and put my clothes on, and I drove like a maniac, and I flew through several red lights, and the good news is I made it without getting pulled over by a cop, but the other good news is I was only 10 minutes late for work. So, can you imagine how a narrow-minded, conservative, yuppie conformist would react to how I would have answered that job interviewing question? For some reason, that would not be the proper way to answer that job interviewing question. A corporation is interested in my life story, my hopes, and my dreams. All they care about is how I can make the money and how I can make them more money than anyone else can. Anyway, next question. So, Pat, what are your career goals? What kind of career would you like to see yourself in 5 years from now? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm planning on going to medical school so I can become an abortion doctor. I heard there is now a shortage of qualified doctors who are willing to perform abortions. I feel that abortion is not only necessary for saving our planet from overpopulation, but the thought of extracting unborn fetuses from pregnant women sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. Next question. So, Pat, what do you find important in a job? Well, I once worked at a convenience store, and I really enjoyed making sure that the shelves were well stocked up with cigarettes because I wanted to help do my part to help people get cancer. So, Pat, tell me something about you liked in your previous jobs. Well, the best previous job I had is when I worked at a convenience store, and it was kind of boring. But I noticed that they sold fleet enemas at that store. So it would give me a cheap thrill to look at the boxes and the drawings on the box, explaining to people the proper way to stick the enema up their ass. Next question. So, Pat, tell me something about one of your previous jobs that you didn't like. Oh, don't even get me started, honey. With that in mind, working sucks. But then I often hear people say, I have so many bills to pay. Well, for one thing, most corporations are too cheap and greedy to pay people enough to pay their bills anyway. Also, working for someone you can't stand will ruin your health. Do you know that most heart attacks occur in the morning than any other time of the day? That's because so many people would rather croak than spend another day working for a corporation and putting up with their shit. Everyone has bills to pay, but when it comes to earning a living, there's got to be a way to make it more enjoyable, and when it comes to earning a living, there's got to be a better way, and I do have a show coming up in the Fringe Festival, so check that out. It's well overdue, well deserved, and it's about time that I can get some exposure on my unique style and creativity of comedy and dark humor, and other, what do they call that in the Fringe show? Something else. That's actually, I think that's what they call it.
He's a stranger.